A controversial new book, Sunset of Arms, attacks British involvement in the Korean campaign of the 1950s as pointless, wasteful, and last-gasp imperialism. Written by Harold Pusey, professional historian and head of the history department at Crombie University, the book has attracted much criticism and is now the centre of a sensational libel action. Major Alastair Fitton, sole survivor of the defence of the post that came to be known as Hill 329 during the retreat from Manchuria, is suing Pusey and the publishers of Sunset of Arms for libel. Pusey suggests that as the situation worsened and eventually became hopeless on Hill 329, Major Fitton lost his nerve and abandoned his wounded and dying men, choosing to save his own life rather than share their fate. A company director these days, Major Fitton asserts that the allegations are utterly false and highly damaging. In the Crown Court this afternoon, Major Fitton is represented by Mr. Andrew Logan, QC, and Miss Helen Tate, and Jonathan Fry, QC, appears for Harold Pusey.
Last members of the jury, I will show that my client, Harold Pusey, had every justification for the statement he made about Major Alastair Fitton in his book, Sunset of Arms. In other words, the defence will be that the words written by Professor Pusey about the plaintiff, Major Fitton, were true. And now, with your Lordship's permission, I propose for the jury's benefit to read once again the passage containing the alleged libel. It occurs, your Lordship will recall, on page 103 of the hardback edition. The author is speaking in general terms of the deficiencies of the British staff work during the Korean campaign. The Hill 329 affair stands out as a characteristic piece of blimpish folly. For sheer bumbling inadequacy, it is probably unmatched in military annals, unless by the tragic history of the Light Brigade. The officer in charge, Major Alastair Fitton, left with barely 40 men after the disorganized retreat from the Manchurian border, was ordered to fight a rearguard action from Hill 329 until further notice. Typically, further notice never came. Thus, everybody died on Hill 329, with the exception of Major Fitton himself, who seems to have realized at length that he was the victim of a suicidally inept administration and made sensible arrangements to survive personally, whatever the fate of his companions and men. I call, first of all, the defendant, Harold Pusey.
What is your religion?
Roman Catholic.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Harold Pusey. You are Professor of History at Crombie University and author of the book Sunset of Arms.
I am.
Professor, you've just heard a passage from that book read out in court, referring inter alia to Major Alastair Fitton and certain alleged behaviour of his at Hill 329 in the Korean campaign. Do you accept responsibility for those words?
Yes, I wrote it.
What are your qualifications as a military historian?
Well, it is my particular field. I've published a number of works on the major campaigns of World War II. I edited the pictorial publication The Fall of Japan, and I was consultant on the television series Burma Road.
You have, in fact, paid particular attention to the military history of the Far East.
Yes, I have.
Have you ever been involved in official war history?
Well, I contributed to the official history of the Burma campaign. I was also once asked to do a piece for a symposium on Korea, but I refused.
Why was that?
Because I knew that my appreciation of the British part in that campaign would be unacceptable to Whitehall. It would have been a waste of time.
But surely, Professor, the writing of history is simply the setting down of the known facts.
I entirely agree.
Would you at all events regard yourself as qualified to speak about the retreat from the Manchurian border in December 1950?
Well, I should hope so. It was precisely that aspect that the learned symposium makers suggested I dealt with.
Thank you. If the usher would now be kind enough to set up the map. My Lord, this is an agreed map.
Yes. No doubt if Professor Pusey is going to refer to the map, it might make it easier for him if you were to leave the witness box.
Oh, I'm most obliged to your Lordship. Professor, if you'd care to come down here, I think you'd find it easier. Would you first of all give us the general background to the retreat?
Yes, certainly. By November 1950, the United Nations forces had advanced to roughly here. Now, this had been a splendid gain of territory, driving the North Koreans clear across the border into Manchuria. But, and typically, I'm afraid, it had been made with such speed and what can only be described as daring do that no proper reconnaissance of this country had been made, and very little thought had been given to the approaching winter either. Consequently, the enemy, well used to the terrain, and of course knowing how to survive in it, had a really tremendous advantage. Now, the Chinese came into the war and made an irresistible thrust southwards. The Americans, being mobilized, swiftly withdrew from Pakchon here, and at Tokchon here the Turkish brigade fought a very noble last stand, but of course were quite unable to hold the position. Most other national groups made arrangements to fall back, but the British and the Australians, for reasons best known to their commanders, or perhaps, after all, only to their creator himself, decided to fight a series of rearguard actions. Now, readers of my book will know that this is one of my principal criticisms of the British effort in the Korean campaign, the rearguard action. Intended to slow down an advancing enemy, it became an old standby of British military strategy. I've no doubt it was highly useful as a tactic in the Crimea, or even as late as the Boer War, but its relevance in modern mechanized warfare. Anyway, the Americans raced away and lived to fight another day, but our troops became involved in a series of the most bloody rearguard actions, holding actions, and not one of which has ever proved its value, since the United Nations line inevitably fell back beyond the 38th parallel. Anyway...
Was Hill 329 one such bloody holding action?
Yes, indeed. Hill 329 was. The official orders simply said, stand until further notice. To what practical end, it's very hard to say.
Would you indicate for us the geographical position of Hill 329?
Yes, indeed, here on the northern shores of the Taedong River.
And what were the circumstances of the defence of this hill?
Well, of course, the southern slopes of Hill 329 did offer a smooth, sheltered access to the river. It seems to have been supposed by the relevant command that the Chinese might make an armoured crossing at that point.
However, the Chinese forces attacked the position quite savagely.
Yes, once they'd found it being defended, a vicious circle.
Now, the officer commanding the defence of this hill was, in fact, Major Alastair Fitton, was it not?
Yes. Major Fitton had been engaged with infantry some 50 miles to the northwest, guarding a section of the Chongchon Railroad. Told to withdraw by brigade, he was then told to occupy Hill 329 and commence action with, I quote, such men as he had available.
Such men as he had available, these being in number no more than 40, of whom some 12 were wounded.
Yes.
An impossible situation, Professor.
Oh, yes. Quite typical.
Now, is there any indication in the records that Major Fitton resented his orders, or that he at any time sought to be relieved of them?
These records are agreed, are they?
Oh, they are. They are among the agreed documents, my Lord, yes. Is there any indication, Professor, that the Major sought to be relieved of his orders?
Well, his RT operator, one Corporal Batley, contacted brigade repeatedly throughout the three-day period of the defence, asking for support of almost any kind that was available. Some American tank reserves were sent in on day 2, but in the event they didn't help very much. Then an airstrike was promised, but before it could be organised, we are told that communications with the brigade were destroyed, and shortly after that, the defence of Hill 329 effectively came to an end.
We are told.
In records. Records also tell us that Major Fitton, some 24 hours after this cessation of communications, Major Fitton was picked up by an ambulance patrol on the northern shores of the Taedong River, the sole survivor of the operation. Apparently, he'd been trying to get his remaining wounded across to the other side, assisted by Corporal Batley, who it seems was the last man to fall. However, a final Chinese artillery attack vanquished even this pious ambition.
An impartial observer might at this point detect a certain irony in your tone, Professor.
Then the impartial observer would be quite right. It's my conviction that in the matter of Hill 329, the official record is a pack of calculated lies.
That's a very strong statement to make, Professor.
I shall be able to support it. I'd like to see the model, please, the one dealing with the topography of Hill 329. Thank you. Now, do remember that I'm controverting the official documents. It is because, in fact, my researches have led me to subsidiary records that I am able to make these charges. Now, we are told, I repeat, that communications on Hill 329 here were destroyed by a final Chinese artillery attack from emplacements around here. However, the 22nd Canadians who moved in on a mopping-up mission after an airstrike had in turn got rid of the Chinese occupiers report nothing like this at all. On the contrary, they tell us explicitly that the RT was still in working order. Again, the official record tells us that Major Fitton was picked up by the ambulance patrol on the northern shores of the Taidong River whilst trying to get his remaining wounded across, arguably, about here. However, the 22nd Canadians, who achieved an almost complete body count, mind you, tell us nothing about dead discovered down here, or indeed anywhere else, except on the high slopes of Hill 329. And finally, Major Fitton, a sole survivor after Batley fell, is supposed to be picked up by the ambulance men on the northern shores of the Taidong River. However, evidence has since come to light that tells us that before he was, in actual fact, picked up in this way, he was encountered by an Australian platoon here on the south side of the Taidong River, some 500 yards from the water.
I see. Was this before the cessation of activities on Hill 329 or after?
As far as can be discerned, before. Now, these are just facts, and that's all I'm trying to say. We historians don't try to impugn people, living or dead. We just try to establish the facts and come to terms with them. That's all.
We are thus referred to the bundle of agreed documents, Mr. Fry.
That is so, my lord. You'll find there the official record of events at Hill 329, together with two separate extracts from the records of the 22nd Canadians, and another document supplied by an Australian patrol, but evidence on that matter is to be called here.
Yes, my lord, we agree these documents.
Thank you.
Professor Pusey, you're highly critical of the British effort in Korea, aren't you?
Well, I should have thought that was pretty obvious by now.
Yes, but perhaps not for reasons you've made altogether clear to us. Not if your recent book is anything to go by, that is. You believe that the Korean War was, more than anything else, an American effort, don't you?
Well, so it was. It's ridiculous to think of it in any other way, despite that rather bland United Nations label. The USA contributed far and away the lion's share of both men and material. It's only a pity that the American grand strategy, which in its way wasn't all that foul, should have been time and time again frustrated and confused by the independent operations of tin-pot little armies.
Tin-pot little armies, like the British?
Yes, fighting stupid little rearguard actions like Hill 329.
Hill 329. Yes, of course, Professor Pusey. I must say that you're extremely well informed about Hill 329.
I'm an historian. I made a study of the incident.
Again, not if your recent book is anything to go by.
I beg your pardon?
Well, in your recent book, Professor, do you give a great deal of space to the incident of Hill 329?
Not a great deal, no, but...
Hardly more than the paragraph that has led to this action here today, in fact.
No, however...
Whereas in evidence just now, you proved to be a positive mine of information, didn't you? The official record, a pack of lies, contrary reports from the Canadians and the Australians. Why on earth didn't you include all this in your book?
Why?
It makes stimulating copy, don't you think?
A squalid little scandal. One doesn't muckrake, you know.
A squalid little scandal suggesting that a regimental officer had shown gross cowardice in the battle line and deserted his wounded to save his own skin.
Yes.
Oh, come, Professor Pusey. A dedicated establishment knocker like you passing up a golden opportunity like that?
Lord, I do object to these prejudicial
Yes, Mr. Logan, please don't make those sort of comments. If you wish to prove that he has that sort of reputation, ask him. Besides, I'm not at all sure that the term establishment knocker occurs in the dictionary.
Well, failing the Oxford English Dictionary, my lord, one instinctively turns to your lordship for usage. Why didn't you make much of this knowledge of yours, Professor?
Because I didn't choose to. An author has some rights over his own material,
But
surely.
was it perhaps because you felt you couldn't prove what you would say?
Nonsense. The relevant documents are here, introduced in evidence. They prove it.
Prove everything?
What?
Well, there are facts. And there are inferences, Professor. Now, you suggest that Major Fitton left his post.
Well, so he did. Whatever his reasons, you can't controvert that.
Leaving his wounded to die?
I didn't quite put it in that way. In my book, I simply said that he plainly left them, whatever their fate. Well, he certainly wasn't trying to get them across the river, as the official record states, anyway.
But how do you know that for certain?
Because no dead were found by the riverside.
What was the count of dead, Professor Pusey? Can you tell us? There were some missing, I believe.
Very few, 3 at the most.
And at this point, Corporal Batley would have been the only man fit enough to assist Major Fitton in transporting the wounded, would he not?
Arguably.
So 1 or 2 bodies at the riverside would be all that you'd expect to find anyway. Now, isn't it possible that the attack blew these unfortunates and Batley into the river so that the cadavers were carried away?
If anything like that had happened, surely Major Fitton would have contacted Brigade, explaining he was unable to carry on with the action.
Yes, but his radio telephone was out of order.
The 22nd Canadians tell us not.
But supposing that Major Fitton thought it to be out of order.
Really
But
must.
isn't that possible? I mean, at least as possible as that a British officer of otherwise irreproachable character should callously leave to their fate wounded and dying men. You've no lost love for the British Army and its personnel, have you, Professor Pusey?
Because of its methods and outlook. We aren't guarding the Khyber Pass, you know. It's a long time since a platoon of British soldiers instilled fear into the hearts of craven foreigners.
Yes, we've declined into our sunset of arms, so to speak.
If you wish.
You've served in the forces yourself, Professor, have you?
No. As it happens, I was too young for World War II, and later I was excused national service because of my studies.
And so your knowledge of the British military character, then, is purely academic?
A Tudor historian doesn't actually have to have met Henry VIII, you know.
But do you understand the British soldier, Professor?
I should hope so.
The British regimental officer? You see, in your recent book, speaking of Major Fitton's alleged desertion of his post, you say that he made sensible arrangements to survive personally. Now, do you really account that the reaction of a trained officer of the line?
That was merely a colourful way of saying he left the battle area. Sensible arrangements, well, after all, he had been given absurd orders.
But what would have been his reaction to those orders, absurd or not? The reaction of a trained British officer. To disregard them and run away, do you seriously imagine that?
There are anomalies in the official record, questions to be asked.
Oh, quite. Beyond doubt. But won't you agree, Professor, that your researches have unearthed these anomalies whilst utterly failing to answer the questions? Except, that is, in terms of an alarming and rather unlikely character lapse in Major Fitton.
No. Major Fitton must bear the ultimate responsibility for whatever happened on Hill 329. Who else?
Whatever happened. Now, there's an interesting change of emphasis. So there could be various interpretations, then.
I didn't mean that. I simply implied that Major Fitton and his behaviour occupy the centre of the stage, so to speak, and can't easily be edged out of the limelight.
So you still insist a British officer funked his orders, abandoned his wounded and dying men, and finally falsified the official record so that he himself might come out of the whole incident with credit?
I said nothing about falsifying the record.
Yes, something of that sort must have happened, mustn't it, Professor Pusey? How else does it come to tell the precise story that it does?
I don't know. These things aren't my business.
More anomalies, then. More questions to be asked. Well, someone will really have to get down to some comprehensive answers pretty soon, won't they, Professor? Thank you.
Professor, at the time you wrote your book, Sunset of Arms, were you aware of the conflict between the official record in the matter of Hill 329 and what the Australians, Canadians, and so on had to say?
Yes, I was.
Then was there perhaps a reason you've not yet fully explained to the court for suppressing this material in your published texts?
Yes, to be perfectly frank, I wanted to cause as little pain as possible. Well, it's my duty as an historian to tell the truth. I didn't want in any sense to single out Major Fitton. I don't blame him for leaving his post. As it happens, he was in an impossible position. Anyone might have done the same thing.
And this was why you chose not to be more precise about what happened at Hill 329.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor. That would be all.
You can stand down, Professor Pusey.
I call Morton Xavier Lass.
Morton Lass.
What is your religion?
Methodist.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Morton Xavier Lass, and you live at 1257 North Vista Towers, Chicago, Illinois.
That's correct, yes.
What is your occupation, Mr. Lass?
I'm in the meatpacking business, Eastern Division.
Have you ever met the plaintiff in this action, Major Alastair Fitton?
Yes, sir, I have. I first met Major Fitton close on to 20 years ago during the Korean campaign. I was a tank commander. I was sent up to help him in the defense he was making of a hill emplacement.
Was this the emplacement that is now known as Hill 329?
It was, that's correct.
Well, perhaps you could summarize the circumstances for us.
Well, Major Fitton was having a pretty rough time by all accounts. He was fighting a rearguard action on Hill 329, being pounded like crazy. A single day he lost something like 15 men, which is pretty solid.
And that's 15 out of an original 40, some 12 of whom were wounded anyway.
That's what they tell me.
And you were sent up to help.
With 4 Shermans, yes.
And in the event, were you able to be of great assistance to Major Fitton?
No, sir. You see, the trouble with tanks in terrain like that is their flat trajectory. Now, by that I mean you can't get elevation to firepower. Hill 329 was in pretty mountainous terrain, so as soon as we moved in with the Shermans, the Chinese just occupied higher positions. I don't think we had a chance to knock a single enemy gun out of action.
And what was Major Fitton's reaction to this?
Major Fitton's reaction. He blew his mind.
Blew his mind?
Yes, sir, I never saw a man go so far over the edge so fast. He yelled at me, where were the ambulance patrols to get his wounded out? Where were the reinforcements, the supplies? I just had to say, sorry, that had nothing to do with me, and perhaps me and my tanks had better find a war someplace else if we couldn't be of any use to him.
You're saying that Major Fitton was showing signs of strain on day 2 of Hill 329, then?
You kidding? He was operating out of a foxhole halfway down the southern slope where his RT was housed, popping in and out of there like a jackrabbit, swearing at some kind of sergeant in there to keep putting pressure on brigade.
Corporal, I believe. Corporal Backley.
Corporal, yes, yes. Well, then he'd deploy his troops to different positions along the ridge, but every time there was mortar fire, he'd go to ground himself.
You mean that Major Fitton was deliberately staying out of the line of fire?
Look, it was just one hell of a circus on Hill 329. Fitton was in a bad spot. It would have been difficult enough to have held that position with a company that low.
Stick to the facts, please. On Hill 329, did you have any reason to believe that Major Fitton, whilst exposing his men to danger, was taking pains to keep out of trouble himself?
Well, it wasn't so much the way he acted, maybe, as something he said.
Something he said?
A shell landed about, only 50 yards from us. Killed a guy. When the dirt settled, I thought I heard Fitton. It was a sound like dry sobbing. Then he looked up to me, and suddenly he said, He suddenly said, was there some way that I could get him out of there in the tanks with me, because he'd just made up his mind he was not sticking around to get killed for nothing.
The case of Fitton versus Pusey will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. Korean veteran Major Alastair Fitton, sole survivor of the suicidal Hill 329 defence, is suing Harold Pusey for libel. A professional military historian, Professor Pusey has implied in a paragraph of his book Sunset of Arms that Major Fitton survived because he abandoned wounded and dying men to save his skin. Agreed documents in court tend to establish that, in fact, Major Fitton could not have been attempting to ferry wounded across the Taidong River at the time of the final devastating assault, as the official record claims. And also that the radio transmitter on Hill 329, supposed to have been destroyed by enemy gunfire, was in perfect working order, so that Major Fitton could have contacted brigade before leaving his post. Morton Lass, an ex-tank commander who was briefly seconded to Hill 329 to assist Major Fitton, has come from the United States to give evidence in the Crown Court and has just made a rather alarming statement.
Landed only, about 50 yards from us. Killed a guy. When the dirt settled, I thought I heard Fitton. It was a sound like dry sobbing. Then he looked up at me and suddenly he said that he suddenly said, was there some way that I could get him out of there in the tanks with me? Because he'd just made up his mind he wasn't sticking around there to get killed for nothing.
You're quite sure those are the words that Major Fitton used, Mr. Lass?
Yes.
And what did you reply?
Nothing. I was a bit surprised. I guess you don't expect to hear that sort of thing from an officer commanding an operation, even a pretty hopeless one. Then later, Major Fitton said something else.
What was that?
Well, it was calmer and more thought out, if you know what I mean. Major Fitton said that even though he was a regimental soldier, he was fed up with what he called the Army and its murderous ways. He asked me if I had ever heard of Talleyrand and what he had said about his achievements in the French Revolution. I said no. And Fitton told me that Talleyrand had afterwards said to his friends, I survived.
And what meaning did you attach to that, Mr. Lass?
Well, I sure didn't think I was being told that Major Fitton liked the job he was on and was thinking of spinning it out to last the rest of the season.
Apart from the time that Major Fitton shouted at you, demanding to know where the ambulance patrols were, did he make any specific mention of his wounded?
Not that I recall.
Well, did he show signs of great concern for them? Anxiety for their safety? Worry for their ultimate fate?
Not while I was there, but that does not mean that Major...
No, of course not, Mr. Lass. Thank you.
Mr. Lass, when Major Fitton asked you to get him out in the tanks because he'd just made up his mind that he wasn't sticking around to get killed for nothing, those were the precise words?
Yes.
How did he say them exactly?
How?
Yes. Solemnly, with obvious feeling, or perhaps in a jocular fashion?
Jocular? There was nothing funny going on around right then. We just missed being killed. I thought I said a shell hit damn near us and
the dirt settled, and then you heard a sound like dry sobbing from Major Fitton.
Yes.
Now, what does that mean exactly? Was the Major crying, in tears?
No, I didn't say that. He was just making this gasping sound.
Almost like a nervous laugh.
Laugh?
Well, it's at least a possibility if he isn't crying, isn't it? I mean, some men react to extreme danger in this manner, I believe, by bursting into breathy gasps of laughter.
Ma'am, I sure didn't think Major Fitton was laughing.
You took what he said seriously.
Yes?
Get me out of here in those tanks of yours. I'm not sticking around to get killed for nothing. Now, Mr. Lass, wouldn't you agree that words like that could be intended to convey a rather dry, ironic sense of humor?
Now, look, ma'am, I was there. I heard him say it. It was not anything out of the Milton Berle show.
Yes, I suppose it is rather a British way of making a joke.
Beg your pardon?
I was just reflecting that we British have our own peculiar ways of being funny. However, you took what he said at face value, and you made no reply.
Right.
Why was that? Surely, if ever a request demanded some response, it was this one?
Well, I didn't get it not properly. It seemed like such a crazy thing to say. I just couldn't believe that Major Fitton was...
You weren't going to say serious, were you?
On the level, actually.
And yet Major Fitton never referred to the matter again. He merely made some reference to being fed up with the army, which one can quite understand in his position. And then he told you that anecdote of Talleyrand, saying his greatest achievement in the Revolution was to have survived.
Mere British humor, I suppose.
Oh, I think it's beyond question that the last joke was in fact French, Mr. Lass. Are you saying of Major Fitton at Hill 329 that he was in a state of moral cowardice?
Well, he was real jumpy. Spooked even, if that's what you mean.
That's precisely not what I mean, Mr. Lass. Was Major Fitton behaving in a frightened, craven fashion?
He was going to ground every time a gun fired. He was browbeating that little corporal on the RT, Bentley or whatever his name was, really having a go at him because brigade would not issue him with orders to pull out. Now, that's symptomatic, I guess.
Symptoms aren't diseases, Mr. Lass, and whatever the condition of Major Fitton's courage, there is absolutely nothing to say that it will be the same 24 hours later, is there?
No.
Because a man seems in a blue funk today doesn't mean he'll seem in a blue funk tomorrow. Because someone fails to appreciate British humour this week doesn't mean they won't be laughing at it the next.
Well, I don't see that...
Comment, Miss Tate.
Isn't it so, Mr. Lass?
Sure.
Thank you, that's all.
May this witness now be released, my lord?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mr. Lass.
I call Ronald Hartstrong.
Ronald Hartstrong.
Hey, it's Yank!
Where did you
I didn't know you were connected with
Crazy
this.
bastard.
Bastard yourself.
Silence in court.
Am I to understand that you two gentlemen know each other?
Yes, my lord. It's a strange coincidence, but during the Korean campaign, my unit was pinned down with a group of Australians, and Digger here was their commander. I didn't even know his name was...
Hartstrong, Ron Hartstrong. You haven't lost your punch.
Very moving. However, this is a court of law, and I must direct that anything in the nature of a servicemen's reunion must be postponed until a further occasion. Now, will you be so good as to take the witness box, Mr. Hartstrong?
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Your name is Ronald Hartstrong, and you live at Cranston Station, Blacktree Point,
Wirrawar Ally.
I beg your pardon?
Wirrawar Ally, my lord. It's a place in New South Wales with a double L.
With a double L, of course.
You are a sheep farmer, Mr. Hartstrong.
Station manager, yes.
Very nice. And as we've already learned, you were on active service in Korea in 1950.
That's right.
In December of that year, were you somewhere near the emplacement known as Hill 329?
Yes, I was.
Well, just to avoid any possible confusion, this was, of course, long before you made the acquaintance of Mr. Lass.
Yank? Oh, yeah, sure, you bet.
Yes. Well, now, would you tell us what you were doing near Hill 329?
Yeah, well, it was a bit of a rare go, if you'd like to know. We Aussies and New Zealanders had been lumped together with the a couple of British regiments to form what then got to be known as the 27th Commonwealth Brigade. So we got the same sort of crackpot orders. On the morning of December the 10th, I was assigned a patrol and just told to go and find out if the Chinese across the Tuk Chinese stretch of the Taidong River strike.
Now, you were on the south bank of the river, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right.
And Hill 329 is on the north.
Yes. Well, I went careful as I approached the Hill 329 area. I knew a holding operation was going on there, and I could hear the mortars loud and clear.
Now, this is actually rather important, Mr. Hartstrong. The position was active. That is, fighting was going on. You can testify to that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't Randwick Racecourse on a Sunday. A stray shell landed in the river not more than 200 feet from us when we got close.
How close, in fact, did you get?
Oh, about half a mile from the emplacement.
And then did something happen that you would like to tell the court today?
Sure. We were pushing through a bamboo clump, going real easy, when I heard something approaching. I thought it must have been an animal by the racket it was making, but no, it turned out to be a man, all wet and at the end of his tether, a British major.
You see that same man in court today, Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, that's him there, the plaintiff?
Yes.
In the case, Major Alastair Fitton.
Now, you say that Major Fitton was at the end of his tether. What do you mean by that? Was he exhausted?
Yeah, but he was quite plainly battle-shocked, too. He was shaken like a leaf, not sure what he was doing.
And what did you do?
Oh, routine procedure. Checked his discs, tried to get some sense out of him, but he couldn't seem to string two words together. Then one of my blokes remembered there was supposed to be an ambulance lorry passing a point called Brooklyn Bridge, about 3 miles back down the river at 1100 hours. So we figured maybe we better get Major Fitton there. I mean, apart from anything else, he was wet right through and it was cold enough to freeze the it was pretty cold, my lord.
So you took Major Fitton to Brooklyn Bridge?
Yeah, we couldn't be sure it was still there, mind. It was only a pontoon the Yanks had put in to help with the retreat, but there it was, as large as life. So we left Major Fitton there for the Zambucks and shot through.
You left him there?
Yeah, well, there was nothing much else we could do for him.
I see. Well, did you leave him on the north side or the south side of the bridge?
On the north side, we took him across.
Now, all this time, Major Fitton had said nothing to you? Nothing at all?
Well, yeah, he said something at the very end.
And what was that?
Well, it was weird. When we started to leave him, he panicked or something and suddenly started to say, "Don't let them kill me now," over and over again.
Now, let us be quite precise about this, Mr. Armstrong. Seeing you and your patrol leave, Major Fitton said, "Don't let them kill me now," and repeated that phrase over and over again.
Yeah, that's it.
And did you make a full report of this entire matter at the time?
Oh, to my own mob, sure. But the way I heard it, the British didn't get a look at our record.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Claire, wait!
So as far as you can testify, then, by the time you arrived on the scene, Major Fitton might well have had reason to end his engagement and seek, perfectly honourably, to evacuate the post.
There was the gunfire. I heard the gunfire.
British gunfire, Mr. Hartstrong, or Chinese? Is it possible to tell? Again, you tell us that at the post known as Brooklyn Bridge, when you and your patrol started to leave Major Fitton, he began to say over and over again, "Don't let them kill me now. Don't let them kill me now."
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you a very exact question here. Is it beyond the bounds of possibility that what Major Fitton actually said was, "Don't let him kill me now. Don't let him kill me now"?
Him?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's possible, I suppose, yeah. I mean, anybody can make a mistake between them and him, but I thought he said them.
That's all.
And that, my lord, concludes the case for the defence.
Thank you. You may leave the witness box, Mr. Hartstrong.
My lord, in the course of this hearing, things have been said directly and indirectly which reflect gravely on the plaintiff. Now, I will show that these slurs on his character are entirely without foundation, and that thus the appreciation of his conduct at Hill 329 as expressed by Professor Harold Pusey in his book Sunset of Arms constitutes a grave and reprehensible libel. To this end, I need only to call the plaintiff himself, Major Alastair Fitton. Would you take a box?
What is your religion?
Church of England.
Take the testament in your right hand and read out aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
You are Major Alastair Fitton?
Yes, yes.
And you live at Inverleith Cottage, Wootton Moor, Derbyshire?
Yes, that's right.
Major Fitton, it is suitable, I suppose, to address you as Major, even though you have been retired from the army now for some years.
Yes, I don't mind. It's the sort of thing that sticks to a man, I suppose.
In fact, you come from a military family, don't you, Major?
Yes, I suppose so. My father and my uncle were both professional soldiers. My father-in-law was a military strategist. He had a hand in the planning of the Normandy invasion.
And when did you retire from the army, Major Fitton?
1957.
Why exactly?
Well, that was about as soon after Korea as I could respectably get out. Now, I've been invalided home after certain developments in that campaign and transferred to staff. But love had died between the army and me. I'd had a belly full of soldiering.
A belly full of soldiering.
And yes, indeed. A great deal has been said in this courtroom today about Hill 329 and how I'm supposed to behave there.
Yes,
Now,
Major,
I'd like to make it quite clear that a great deal of what has been said is true in its way. I did think it was a pointless damned action to have to fight, considering the way my men were, and I did spend a great deal of my time on Hill 329 trying to get brigade to rescind suicidal orders.
Yes, I think we ought
what's
to
more,
stick to
I did fly into a very violent temper when Lass came up with those Shermans and they couldn't hurt the enemy. It seemed to me typical of the bungling and the idiocy that had been going on all through. Now, the Americans knew how to fight that campaign in Korea, running as soon as they were hit, regrouping at a respectable distance, and then fighting back. Professor Pusey is not wrong about that, you know. Not at all. Not wrong at all.
Now, Major Fitton, Morton Lass has testified that after an uncomfortably near miss from a shell, you asked him if he would get... Major Fitton. Major Fitton, you asked Morton Lass, could he get you out of there in his tanks because you weren't sticking around to get killed for nothing? Now, did you in fact say something like that?
Yes.
Just those
I
words?
may have said something like that. Well, perhaps...
Did you mean
I don't remember
seriously?
exactly. Seriously? No, good God, no. I thought you'd clear that up. It was a kind of joke in its way. I couldn't have left Hill 329. It wasn't remotely possible. I had wounded there.
Wounded, yes, and these were your main concern, naturally.
Naturally.
And how many wounded at this point?
Well, 8 when Lass came up. There were about 12 of those that I'd brought with me had bought it, and there were only a dozen men left in the firing line. It was pretty grim.
An invidious situation for you, Major.
It was a long time ago. The ambulance patrol, I kept requesting that not coming up. It's that kind of thing that comes back to bother you.
Yes. The official record tells us, Major, that when the final attack came, effectively ending the Hill 329 defense, you were attempting to transfer wounded across the Taidong River. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
It isn't correct.
No.
The official record also tells us that as the sole survivor of Hill 329, you were eventually picked up by an ambulance patrol on the northern bank of the Taidong River. Is that correct?
No, that's false as well. The fact is, I was picked up by some Australians on the south bank of the river.
Well, it looks as though we're faced with certain anomalies then, Major, which we need to clear up.
Yes, the true story of Hill 329 has never been told. Under the circumstances, it seems that I'm to be the one to break it publicly. Well, after Lass and the tanks went, I got onto brigade and told them just how useless they'd been. I expect I was still in a pretty bad state of mind. Anyway, an airstrike was promised, and we settled down to wait for it. 36 hours, heavy fighting, men dying. Finally, a direct hit on the top of the ridge killed the last of my defenders. And Corporal Batley announced also that the radio telephone was out of action. Well, I said that was just fine. It meant I could at last act on my own initiative. And what I proposed to do was to end hostilities and get the wounded out. But Batley said, no, that was not the way it was going to be.
Batley said that, the corporal?
Yes, he was the last man on his feet, you see. He must have been in an even worse state of mind than me. He drew a revolver on me.
Corporal Batley threatened your life?
He said I was to go down the hill before him and to build a raft at the river, some kind of float anyway, and he proposed to cross the river on it.
And you?
Oh, I don't know. I was so dazed I simply obeyed at that point. But we hadn't got more than 50 yards down the hillside when the enemy launched that final assault. I hit the ground. Batley caught a direct blast and died at once. I tried to get back to the wounded in a lull, but they were all hit too. There wasn't a man alive on that hill save me. Now, I don't remember too well after that. Somehow I managed to get across the river. It seemed to me that Corporal Batley was still behind me with the revolver.
And you feared him? What he might do?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you, Major Fitton. However, there remains a grave discrepancy between what you've now told us and the official record. Can you explain that for us in any way?
I can. When the ambulance patrol delivered me back to brigade, I lied about what had happened.
You lied?
Yes. It seemed to me that the regiment would be brought into disrepute if the truth were told. We'd all been under fearful, inhuman pressure. In the event, Batley had snapped. So that could have happened to me, to any one of us.
So you reported that Corporal Batley had in fact been helping you to get the wounded out when the final attack came, and you were the sole survivor?
Yes.
Now, why didn't you report that you'd crossed to the southern side of the river, though, Major?
Oh, I didn't think that could be explained away so readily. I didn't know why I'd done it, you see. It never occurred to me that an Australian patrol would put in a report that would one day emerge to find me out.
Yes. Now about the RT on Hill 329, Major. You believed Corporal Batley when he told you that it was out of order, did you?
Oh, yes, of course. I had no reason not to.
And finally, why have you never told this story before?
Well, mainly to protect Batley's reputation, I think. He was a good soldier. Circumstances, the wrong sort of orders that caused him to behave as he did. Our superiors must bear the responsibility for what happened on Hill 329. Obsolete notions of warfare. Those men died for nothing, you know. My men.
Thank you, Major Fitton. That is all.
Major Fitton, we're expected to believe all you've just told us, are we?
I beg your pardon?
This farrago of fancy, this romantic and completely unsubstantiated tale, you want us to believe it? Well, let us see if we can extract the meagre fact from the fantasy. Firstly, you were on the south bank of the river when you were picked up, weren't you?
Yes.
Well, that means that you'd left your post against orders, doesn't it?
No, only after everyone else was dead there.
Secondly, your radio telephone was in working order.
No, I don't see how
Wasn't
I can be...
it?
Yes.
So that in theory, at least, you could have contacted brigade and asked for further orders.
No, I had been told that the radio telephone was finished.
Thirdly, you turned in a report to your superiors that was not in fact true, suggesting that you had in fact not crossed the river and that you were attempting to get out the wounded when the final enemy assault came.
Only to protect a fellow soldier.
Oh, come.
No, it was necessary to lie.
A fellow soldier, Batley, an obscure corporal whom, according to other reports, you've been browbeating and bullying throughout the entire action. You were concerned about his posthumous reputation?
He was one of my men.
A man who, in the end, turned a gun on you, you claim, thereby entitling himself to your best efforts to redeem him, of course.
You're making it sound ridiculous. We were under terrible stress. Batley snapped.
And you didn't?
What?
You, who'd shown all the symptoms of acute stress earlier, remained ice-cold and calm, whilst Batley turned homicidal.
No, it's all wrong. He's got no right to say these things.
Who's that man?
It's lies, sir, all of
Be
it.
silent, sir. Usher.
Oh, you
eject
can't
that
throw me
man
out.
from the court.
Not when I've got things to say.
Usher.
I'm not as dead as he hopes. I'm here, Major Fitton. Here alive, Corporal Batley.
The case of Fitton versus Pusey will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. In his controversial book, Sunset of Arms, Professor Harold Pusey has implied that during the defence of Hill 329 in Korea in 1950, Major Alastair Fitton, sole survivor of the action, abandoned his wounded and dying men in order to save his own life. Pursuing a libel action against Professor Pusey, Major Fitton has stated that he was forced at gunpoint to leave Hill 329 by Corporal Batley, his radio transmitter operator, who turned on him when the situation seemed hopeless. Batley was supposed subsequently to have been killed in a final enemy assault. But a man has stood up in court and claimed to be Corporal Batley and suggested that Major Fitton has been lying.
Take the testament in your right hand and read aloud the words on this card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Well, we seem to have established that you are, in fact, Corporal Batley from Hill 329 in Korea. Oh, by the way, do you still use that name?
No, my lord. For a number of years now I've been known as William Truscott.
Where do you live? And what's your profession?
Well, I run a little grocery business, Truscott Stores, 42 Hawthorns Avenue, York.
Why did you assume a false identity?
Well, after the Hill 329 business, I had no identity, not really. I was officially dead, as you might say. Well, so I exchanged discs with a blown-to-bits body I found further downstream, and then eventually got home. And then I invented Truscott to keep things nice and tidy.
And what exactly prompted you to come to this court today?
I wanted to see what happened.
You wanted to see what happened?
Well, I'd read about this book, and how the Major was suing for libel. And I thought I should see how it all turned out. I was there on Hill 329, my lord. I could say if it was right or not.
But surely, by appearing in open court like this, didn't you risk discovery?
20 years is a long time. But anyway, it's as well I came, isn't it? It's as well I spoke up. What was being said just now is the complete opposite of the truth.
Now, Corporal,
the complete opposite, my lord. It wasn't me fired a revolver at Major Fitton when things went bad at Hill 329. It was him held one at me and fired to kill.
Silence, Yes. Well, I think we all realize that you'd have your own version of the events. Perhaps if learned counsel will forgive me again, but it would save time and complications if I were to simply ask him to state it.
I have no objection, my lord.
I welcome Batley's story, my lord.
Very well, now, Corporal Batley. I think we'll continue to address you in that way.
Well, it's all true up until when the tanks went. The Yanks couldn't. And then it's true, too, that I got it on the RT from Brigade that there was going to be an airstrike, but they never said when. And then, which was pretty nearly 36 hours. Now, the Major was in a bad way already, but the barrage seemed to make him sort of distrained.
Distrained, Corporal?
Half crazy, my lord, like he didn't know what to do anymore.
Perhaps you mean distraught.
Oh, thank you, my lord. Yes. Well, he said I was to go through the lines, take a message personally to Brigade, explaining that the situation was hopeless. Through all the gunfire. Well, I didn't understand. I said, why should I do a thing like that when we could use the RT? He said I had to go, no argument. Was I going to obey an order or wasn't I? Well, he was out of his mind, so I said no. It was a balmy order, my lord. It was suicide. I wouldn't have lasted 2 minutes out there. Anyway, that's when the Major pulled the gun on me, said I was to consider myself under arrest, refusing a frontline order. Just at that moment, the big hit on the ridge came and killed everyone except for the Major and me and the wounded further down the hill. He was blown over, and then he jumped up and fired. Fired at me. The shot went wild, but I had enough sense to lie down and play dead. Anyway, the Major vanished and rushed off down the slopes to the river. I got into a foxhole and waited till the barrage was over. For about 7 hours I stayed put, and then I eventually moved out and did everything else like I told you.
Yes. Well, gentlemen, I've no doubt you'll both have some questions to put concerning this statement of affairs. Considering its nature, perhaps you'd better begin, Mr. Fry.
Yes, of course, my lord. Well, Corporal Batley, I think in the circumstances it's only right to ask you first of all why you waited 20 years before telling this astonishing story.
For the same reason, I swapped discs and got myself a new ID, sir. I wouldn't have been believed, would I? Not against an officer. And I'd refused an order in the front line.
Then why speak now?
Because somehow I had the feeling the Major wouldn't tell the truth in court today, and I said to myself, if he didn't, then I would.
Yes, I see. Now, you've told us that the Major fired at you and vanished, after which you spent the next 7 hours in a foxhole.
That's right, sir.
When you emerged, did you see any signs of the men who'd been wounded previously?
The wounded, yes, I saw them plain enough. They were all dead.
Now, were their bodies where you'd observed them earlier, or had there perhaps been some attempt to move them?
No, they hadn't been moved, not an inch. Those men died just where they lay.
So when Major Fitton rushed off down the slope to the river, as you put it, would he have had to pass these wounded men to do so?
Yes, he would, sir. Couldn't have avoided it.
I see. Now, just one other matter at the moment, Corporal. In general, how were relations between you and Major Fitton?
Most times pretty good.
Until Hill 329, there'd been no sort of trouble of any kind between you?
No, none at all.
You do realise, don't you, that evidence could be brought to this point? Your superiors in the service at the relevant time would no doubt be willing to speak.
I'm not afraid of anything like that, sir. The Major knows the truth. We all do now.
Yes. Well, thank you, Corporal.
You're enjoying this, aren't you, Corporal Batley?
Pardon, sir?
No, I say you're enjoying yourself. Bursting into the case like a hero from some old-fashioned melodrama. Attracting all the attention to yourself. You like the limelight, don't you?
My only desire is that the truth should come out. The Major's testified to lies.
Ah, yes, this devotion of yours to the truth. Now, let's put that to the test, shall we, Corporal? In the first place, you maintain that on Hill 329, Major Fitton drew a revolver on you.
That's so.
Well, if it happened, was it really so very reprehensible on the part of Major Fitton?
What, sir?
Well, I say, was it so very reprehensible of him? An officer under the stress of action, finding his order not being obeyed, and drawing a pistol in order to endeavour to enforce it.
But look, it was a balmy order, sir.
But yours not to reason why, Corporal. That's the army as I used to know it, and I don't suppose it was any different on Hill 329. Now, you also allege that Major Fitton shot at you.
Yes, that's right.
Why?
Why?
Well, if you gave him no provocation, it was surely a most extraordinary thing for an officer to do.
I gave him no provocation. I don't know why. There was that big hit on the ridge, I told you, and then he turned and fired at me.
At what range, incidentally?
20 yards.
20 yards? And he missed you?
No, further, 35.
You said 20. And even though you were dealing with such a demonstrably rotten shot, you at once flopped down and played dead.
Well, who wouldn't?
You've sworn an oath to tell the truth here, Corporal. You're not betraying that oath by any chance, are you?
No.
Now, after Major Fitton vanished, as you suggest, you crept into a foxhole.
That's right.
Where you remained for 7 hours.
Yes.
Showing remarkably little concern for the wounded on the hillside, then.
What?
Well, your wounded comrades, Corporal Batley. They were out there where the shells were bursting, weren't they? Didn't you recall that at the time?
Well,
I mean, after all, you did believe that Major Fitton had vanished.
Well, I wasn't sure about that just then. He might have been doing something about the wounded. I didn't know. Anyway, I couldn't move.
You couldn't move?
I was pinned down by mortar fire. You've no idea what it was like, sir.
But not a single break in 7 hours? I mean,
Well-
not a tiny lull in which you could at least peer out and see how the wounded were faring.
It just went on and on.
How did you know when the attack was actually over?
The firing stopped eventually. When there hadn't been any firing for half an hour, I reckoned it was safe enough to move out.
And of course you found yourself quite alone on Hill 329.
Oh, yes, sir. But for the dead.
No, I didn't mean the dead, Corporal. I meant, didn't you find that the enemy were there as well? Oh, come along, Corporal Batley. The Chinese had conducted a monumental, a pulverizing assault. You really mean now to tell us that they didn't even bother to close up and occupy their hard-won position?
I don't know about that. They weren't there when I crawled out.
But half an hour after the firing had stopped and still no sign of enemy soldiers. You're lying, aren't you, Corporal Batley?
No.
It's Major Fitton who's told the truth here today, the real truth, that it was you who drew a gun on him, forcing him down to the river.
That's not
you who
so.
might have shot him if an attack hadn't come to knock you out.
Look!
You, who then realized that you had a serious charge to answer, adopted a new identity, and began to live a charade. Now, that's the truth, isn't it?
No! It's all lies. Why can't I be believed? If it was the other way about, me an officer, him the enlisted man, it'd be different, wouldn't it? It's always the officers gets believed, always. 20 years. I just wanted to clear things up if I could. Why did I speak out if I wasn't telling the truth? I stand to lose if this goes against me today. I should be called a coward. Worse, I didn't have to speak. I just did because I was tired. Tired of lies.
You are still under oath, Major Fitton.
Before returning you to my learned friend and the tender mercies of his cross-examination, Major Fitton, the new evidence presented would seem to prompt one or two essential questions on my part. First of all, do you accept as a whole or in any part the story that Corporal Batley has just told the court?
It's amazing. It's quite amazing. Somehow Batley managed to survive Hill 329, that's undeniable. But as for the rest, it's nothing I know.
You adhere to previous testimony?
Yes, of course.
And Corporal Batley insists that until a final incident on Hill 329, his relationship with you was of the best. Would you agree with that?
Oh, certainly. I had no complaint of him as a soldier. His ultimate lapse was regrettable from my point of view.
You can suggest to us, then, no real reason why Corporal Batley should wish to rise up from the grave and tell these fantastic tales about you?
I certainly can't. I was hard on Batley on Hill 329, very hard. I've made no bones about that, but it seems incredible that he... But I don't understand. I don't understand.
Thank you.
Well, Major Fitton, we find ourselves in a bit of a pickle, don't we? Ultimately, it seems we have to decide either to believe Batley or to believe you.
Well, if that's meant to be a question, I can tell you who to believe without further ado.
I'm sure. However, if we may revert to the evidence you were giving before Corporal Batley interrupted us, you say you weren't very clear why you crossed the Tydong River.
I'm sorry?
From north to south, after the final enemy assault, after Batley had allegedly fallen, after you had allegedly checked the wounded, and so on and so forth. You say that you weren't clear why you made the crossing.
No, that's true. Things weren't very clear then, and I'm not very sure what was happening.
Well, I suppose not, because it was really rather an odd thing to do, wasn't it?
I beg your pardon?
Well, Lieutenant Hartstrong has told us that 3 miles along the north bank of the river there was a pontoon point known as Brooklyn Bridge. Well, surely you knew that, and knew that if you carried along the north bank of the river, you would eventually find it and reach help.
But one couldn't be sure that those pontoons will still be there, you know. And perhaps I thought I'd strike other enemy emplacements along the north bank.
You weren't so confused that you couldn't think that, then?
No, I didn't say that I thought that. I said I might have done.
Well, now, this river, how wide was it at the point where you crossed it, do you think?
Oh, goodness me, it's 20 years ago. I can't remember that.
Well, approximately, from here out into the streets.
Oh, no, not as far as that.
Oh.
Perhaps 60 yards.
60 yards? And how did you cross it? Was it on a raft of the type that Corporal Batley allegedly asked you to construct? Oh, no, there hadn't been time for that, had there?
No.
No, how then? Did you swim?
Well, I expect I must have done.
Oh, good gracious me, Major. A 60-yard swim through troubled waters in the depths of winter, and you still aren't sure about it.
I repeat, I was in a very disorganized state of mind. I made no secret of that.
Yet organized enough to check that everybody was dead before you left Hill 329. Organized enough to decide that it was safer to swim across an icy torrent than to risk encountering enemy patrols along the north bank.
I repeat, I'm not sure that I did think like that.
Frankly, Major, isn't all this behavior characteristic of a man on the run, fleeing his responsibilities in a fit of blind terror?
No.
You say that Batley drew a gun on you, and yet Batley, from all this we've heard, was conscientiously carrying out his duties throughout the entire action, whilst you were the one who was nervous, upset, near hysterical.
I was not hysterical. I was merely upset because my men were dying.
And you weren't.
What?
You were afraid of dying, weren't you, Major? Mr. Hartstrong remembers that you said, "Don't let them kill me now," over and over again after he picked you up.
I've told you that I had the idea that Batley was still threatening me. I was probably saying, "Don't let him kill me now."
Fighting was still going on Hill 329 when you were picked up on the south bank.
No, bombardment only. The action was over.
Are you sure of that?
Good God, what kind of a soldier do you think I was? I checked and double-checked the wounded to make sure that they were all dead. I even dragged Batley's body up amongst them so I could protect his name afterwards. I can't understand how he's still alive. I checked his heart, his pulse, everything.
So you were absolutely clear in your own mind what you were doing before you left Hill 329. You weren't confused at all. How odd, then, that having crossed the river, you should have been incoherent, moving without care, so far out of control that you imagined a killer to be on your tail. I put it to you, Major Fitton, that you can suggest no reason why Corporal Batley's evidence, whilst on the one hand directly contradicting everything that you have told us, should on the other fit in much more accurately with what else is known of your state of mind at the time.
No, it does not. Now, you're interpreting the facts for your own purposes. Now, there could be money in this for Batley, couldn't there?
I beg your pardon.
Well, it'd make a very good newspaper story. Soldier back from the dead, resurrected corporal accuses officer. I've no doubt he could try and claim compensation for the army if he could put this whole thing onto me. There's no end to the possibilities.
Thank you, Major Fitton. No further questions.
There's just one matter we should clear up, Major Fitton. Did you at any stage on Hill 329 give Corporal Batley an order to take a personal message for you to brigade?
No, I did not. That's utterly absurd.
And what then was your reaction when Batley drew this revolver on you and demanded that you conducted him to safety?
I was deeply shocked, needless to say. But even then, I think I could appreciate that I'd had some part in bringing him to that state of mind. You see, I've tried to make it clear that I don't altogether blame Batley for what he did. We were under intolerable stress. Batley cracked, and I didn't. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. That concludes the case for the plaintiff, my lord.
Very well. You may stand down, Major Fitton. It's for you to address the jury first, Mr. Logan.
Members of the jury, it is, as you are aware, the contention of the plaintiff that the statements made about his behavior on Hill 329 by Professor Pusey in his book Sunset of Arms are false and therefore libelous. The facts speak for themselves. There has been no proof of cowardice on the part of Major Fitton. You may wonder why, in order to prove this libel, I have called only one witness, the plaintiff himself, Major Alastair Fitton. Well, that is because until the melodramatic intervention of a revived Corporal Batley, there simply was no other witness to call. Only Major Fitton could tell us truly what occurred on Hill 329. And in my submission, there is still only one man who can tell us what happened there, Major Fitton. Major Fitton has been painfully honest with us here today. Long before the advent of Corporal Batley, he was prepared to tell us quite frankly that he disliked his orders, that he sought to be relieved of them, and even that he ultimately left the army because he was faced with no option but to carry them out. Throughout the entire action, his concern was for his men. He wanted the orders rescinded precisely because he realized that his men would die as a result of them. Now, absolutely no evidence has been produced by the defense to prove that Major Fitton was at any time in what could be called a cowardly state of mind. And in the same way, absolutely no evidence has been produced to show that all his men, apart from Batley that is, were not already dead when he left Hill 329. As far as he could possibly know, he was the sole survivor. The Australian patrol picked him up on the south bank of the river in an incoherent state of mind. It's not important why he crossed the river, or even, strictly speaking, what he said at that particular stage. He was a man at the end of his tether. Logic would almost be suspect. As for Corporal Batley and his outlandish story, 20 years too late, well, I feel confident you will know what to believe there. His motive for speaking is, of course, curious. It may be financial. It may be purely neurotic. I don't think anyone who has seen him here today could doubt that Corporal Batley enjoys being in the limelight. In any event, he survived Hill 329. And now, in a new way, he turns on the officer whom he turned on then. He hopes, it appears, to clear himself of that first offense by committing a second, the offense of perjury. Members of the jury, you may not believe this insubordinate soldier, this deserter, against a blameless and honourable officer like Major Fitton. I write you therefore find the libel proved.
May it please your lordship, members of the jury, my learned friend is at least right when he says that until the advent of Corporal Batley, he had no other witness to establish the case for the plaintiff than the plaintiff himself, Major Fitton. However, there can now no longer be any doubt that Major Fitton's credibility is in jeopardy. By his own admission, he was very clear in his mind what he was doing before he left Hill 329. Very unclear after he'd crossed the river to the south bank. Moreover, Major Fitton admits that once he was safely out of danger, he falsified the official record. Now, don't forget that. This was a calculated action. Undertaking, he says, because he didn't think that his crossing of the Tydong River could be explained away so easily. And indeed it couldn't. Still can't. We have waited in vain for a convincing explanation, and only Corporal Batley's evidence supplies it. Now, as to the suggestion that a desire for the limelight and for financial reward were Corporal Batley's motives for giving evidence today, I would remind you that he could have spoken out any time since 1950, with the same meagre hope of reward and with the same certainty of facing charges. For whatever happens here in this court today, Batley is now certain to face a military charge. In other words, by giving evidence here, Batley stands to lose a good deal and to gain nothing at all. I submit that his evidence, together with that of Mr. Lass and Mr. Hartstrong, supports the view that Professor Pusey spoke the truth in his book about Major Fitton, Sunset of Arms. In other words, he has uttered no libel against Major Fitton, and you have no choice but to find accordingly.
In this case, Professor Pusey is liable to Major Fitton unless he proves, to the balance of probabilities, that the Major did behave in the manner described in his book, that he abandoned his wounded to their fate. And it comes down to this, really. If you believe Corporal Batley's story, you will find for the defendant. If you believe Major Fitton's story, that he did not abandon his men, then you will find for him, the plaintiff. If you find it difficult to decide precisely what did happen, then you must resolve your doubt in favor of the plaintiff and find for him. Now, members of the jury, you will adjourn to consider your verdict.
All stand. All stand. Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Just answer me this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find for the plaintiff or the defendant?
For the plaintiff.
And that is the verdict of you all?
Yes. Well, members of the jury, since you were found for the plaintiff, there remains the question of assessing how much damages he should be paid. This, again, is a matter for you to decide, and I shall direct you as to how to do it. But as it is now the end of the day, I suggest we adjourn until tomorrow.
All stand.
Yes, well, I might be able to keep one or two things, but just come by room something.
Major Alastair Fitton was awarded £30,000 in damages. Next week, a chance for you to join another jury in assessing the facts when our cameras return to watch a leading case in the Crown Court.